And we are live. What's up, Faf?
Welcome back.
Welcome back. We are finally back. It has been genuine ages, and I apologize for how long it's been, but there have been vacations and scheduling issues and this and that. We're back. I promise this time we're back for good. We're going to keep it up, back to consistent schedules. We got this. So, Faf, I will let you introduce today's episode as we jump right back into it.
All right, then. So, while we were on vacation, they released a new Vortex dungeon that goes by the name Burn Sand.
Mm-hmm.
And in it, there are 3 challenges, which are the path of devotion, valor, and celerity. And these 3 paths, when you beat them all, unlock a called Redemption Sand, whose only purpose is basically to farm exalted tokens and totally doesn't drop anything else.
Yeah, no, he has absolutely no other drops. And if you're coming to this video hoping to know that he has any drops, there's not. He doesn't drop anything other than the guaranteed exalted tokens.
My 20 runs of Osiris can guarantee he doesn't drop anything.
20 runs of pure anecdotal evidence. Yeah. Just don't believe anyone who says it.
What's that? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't even think it's possible to get. I think you have to inject that sphere. No, but for real. So, Osiris, these 3 dungeons you go through, and it unlocks a final dungeon in which you can farm Osiris, who has a chance to drop glitter sand. And glitter sand, among other things, including previous tiers of the sphere, actually turned into a very, very powerful sphere, which I'm looking up right now.
Do you want to say the sphere details?
Yeah, I might as well. So it's called Miracle of Cons, Miracle of Cones, depending on who you ask. But it is a 60% boost to all parameters of fire and earth types. Reduces BB gauge required for BB. It's a 25% reduced BB cost. Negates all status ailments. Increases buff durations of stat boosts by 1 turn, which is, increasing parameter boosts. And I actually think it might work on... I can't think of the word. Converts as well, but I would have to look into that. Adds boost to own max HP effect to BB and SVB, and here's the kicker, adds a 5% damage reduction to leader skill.
Wonderful. Now we can all meme in Kahlo, because now even Brave Summer is viable for 100% mitigation stress.
Genuinely terrifying.
Alright, so let's get into this dungeon. So I'm gonna kind of, for the sake of brevity, I'm going to lump, when I'm talking about Path of Devotion, I'm just going to refer to it as Devotion 1, 3, ditto for Path of Valor and Path of Celerity, and Osiris, Redemption of Osiris is just going to be called Osiris, because that's pretty much the easiest way to go about it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to get into the story too much because we haven't really gotten too much information on
the lore?
The lore significance of this yet.
Yeah, and definitely it's something that we'll do in the future when there's more info, but for now, not so much.
Right. So let's just get into the paths. I'll start with Path of Devotion because it's the top one. Path of Devotion, the first Devotion 1 is just a bunch of skeletons that you pretty much just bowl over as long as you block.
Mm-hmm.
I remember Devotion 2 being like a Medusa or something that's been modified to continually throw barriers on itself that break pretty easily, and then you just sort of kill Medusa in 1 or 2 turns.
Essentially.
Devotion 3 is essentially the same thing, except now it inflicts various locks on you and instantly dies if Nova. Not instantly as in 1 turn, but it can't do anything.
Yeah.
Once you have launched that DBB, it's just stuck.
Essentially. It is, I believe Devotion is the easiest to farm as well, right? Because it's sort of, less punishing than Valor, let's say.
Well, and Celerity is weird for... Celerity is just weird.
Yeah.
To put it lightly.
Mm-hmm.
Valor is the one that you're probably going to have people hear about. I'm going to start with Valor 1, which is the same as Devotion 1.
Okay.
I think all of the Valor 1, Devotion 1, and Celerity 1 are all the same.
Mhm.
Valor 2 has you hit off against an invincible Lesnick and his summoner who is hiding behind it. And I generally like the only thing I can say about this fight is that it introduces a persistent bug that goes through Valor 3 and then again when Cyrus does it, his fight, which
Mhm.
is that if you DBB and the Necromancer die, which on Valor 2 they will always die to it, um, then you instantly lose because the summoned enemy, their death trigger is only made when the summoner decides kill them. And
Mhm.
what this means is because you have no way to null their angel idol, they are there indefinitely and they will continue healing themselves up and attacking you for negligible damage forever.
Fun
And then you're
stuff.
just stuck there and you're out of the run, which on something like Valor 2 is merely annoying. On Valor 3, it's downright infuriating. And on Osiris, it's just literally torture.
It's shrieking, just endless shrieking.
And speaking of Valor 3, that's what's getting a lot of people really upset with this Vortex because most people haven't even seen Osiris. They're
Mhm.
busy trying to figure out how to beat Valor 3 because Valor 3 is the one where they have a beefed up Necromancer that kills its summon after 13 turns. But if you don't kill it by turn 15, then you just instantly lose. He just wipes your entire team.
Yeah.
You just lose.
It's mildly infuriating actually because I am one of the many who have yet to beat it. And while I have only attempted it twice and lost both times, it's pretty infuriating because it's not necessarily that it's the fact that you lost; it's the fact that you have to take 16 turns to get that loss and then go back in and waste 16 more turns to possibly lose again, which is
Yeah.
rather annoying to say the least.
And finally, there's Celerity, which there really isn't much to talk about.
Mhm.
Celerity 1 is the same as Valor 1, and I already forgot what the first one was. Devotion 1, sorry.
Mhm.
Um, and Celerity 2 is against, I think it's the Salamander or whatever the evolved form of it is.
Mhm.
And its gimmick is it teaches you to guard and cross. All of these like 3 stages before it are meant to kind of preemptively teach you what Osiris's gimmicks are, even though
Mhm.
Osiris does have more. He's not just these gimmicks.
Yeah.
And I think on Celerity 2, I never even got to the point where he put a to my party because I think I killed it before it even reached that point because
Nice.
water is broken.
Water
Uh,
is very broken.
Celerity 3, I actually did get to see the cross, discovered that it was a very tame mechanic and I could bend it rather easily.
Mhm.
And then I just won. You just DBB it to make it go down quicker. It doesn't really threatening, and as long as you read and guard when you're supposed to, which he makes pretty simple to do.
Mhm.
He tries to like fake you out by like calming down, and then he will attack after he calms down. But once you see it once, then you're pretty much safeguarded against it.
Yeah. And I didn't have much trouble with celerity to the point where I genuinely don't even remember doing it. So,
I don't remember doing Celerity either. I
yeah.
think Celerity was the last one I did. Remember it's because Hetefres was the protagonist.
Yeah, pretty laughable. Um, from there, after you've beat those three, it's on to Osiris. And considering the fact that I have not done Osiris, because I am still stuck on Valor 3, we will. I'll have Faf explain more about Osiris, and I'll chime in when I have something clever to say.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start this off by saying I have seen responses to the Osiris boss fight ranging from absolute joy for reasons either related to the boss fight or related to what he is guaranteed to drop
Mhm.
on his mission, and absolute fury that the boss is designed the way that he is. And I understand both positions, but I, at least when I first played this, leaned more towards the former. I very much thought that this was a a good boss fight. Now there are some parts of it that infuriate me, and believe me, I'll bring them up. So Osiris, I can tell that whoever designed Osiris on the Gumi team is definitely the same person who designed the Krampus fight,
Mm-hmm.
the Krampus hard mode fight, because they are, with the exception of the three gimmicks that Osiris has and Osiris's love of inflicting locks, almost exactly the same. In that they are a Earth boss with a crap ton of HP, a bunch of passive mitigation, and they insta kill you if you take 50 turns or more. As in, they just instantly kill your entire team. None of your AIs will do anything. You are on a time limit. If you cannot kill Osiris by turn 50, you lose.
Yeah. Huh. I am a fan of, sorry, just real quick. I am a fan of any kind of mechanic that has a turn limit, and not an extreme turn limit, because it feels like Valor 3 kind of has that. But Osiris being a 50 turn limit sort of weeds out the people that Osiris is more meant for versus the people who can just sort of stand up with a very tanky team.
I'm gonna debunk that in a second.
Ooh, interesting.
Tankiness has nothing to do with clearing.
Interesting.
So, well, another thing that was carried over for the Krampus fight is Osiris occasionally breaks character for a little while and becomes Krampus and just decides, I'm going to do that BB gimmick thing where he does like 2B plus 1S. He does those commands literally straight. Like he just does like 1B plus 1S or 3B. I think I'm like reading directly from his page, but they are exactly the same as Krampus.
Interesting.
And the only thing they do is if you get them right, you deal 2% of his HP and damage instantly to him, which is probably more than you deal in any other phase of the fight. But it's a Pyrrhic victory at best because he makes it more difficult than Krampus' fight because he continuously drains every gauge you have before he lets you actually take your actions. Which means that unless you have 0 BC units, you can't act or like waste fusions on it. You can't actually do anything to Osiris during that time. And of course, he has 100% mitigation during that time, so your attacks aren't doing anything anyway.
Good God.
I have stated in the past that I hate Simon Says mechanics. They were only reasonable against Krampus. Like, they were more reasonable against Krampus because I could not run a 0 BC squad and still achieve the requirements and deal some damage to Krampus. I can't do that with Osiris. If I want to do anything to Osiris, I need a 0 BC team on at least 3 units, which I think is the maximum required in order to fulfill every single requirement that he throws at you, with the exception of the 1U requirement, which is just absolute BS because it keeps draining your overdrive gauge to 0.
Yeah.
While draining your BB gauges. What does one like? Just meant to use a hero crystal there, I guess.
I would assume
but
so.
I wouldn't bring a hero crystal just to deal 2% of his HP.
Yeah.
That is not what I would waste a hero crystal on.
Mm-hmm. Not worth.
Especially because he does that entire phase twice, and this phase lasts for like 8 turns. And
Jeez.
I remind you that 50 turn count is still going. So if you can't get the locks off, then he essentially stalls you out for like a good, not half the fight, but like a good 2/5 of the fight are stalled out by this phase.
That's incredibly frustrating.
Yup.
Huh.
Which leads me into my next point. Osiris, also from Krampus, has insane passive mitigation against pretty much everything, but DBB pierces all of that, so you at least have a way to damage Osiris, which leads to the major problem with this fight and the reason why so many people are struggling with it. You basically need a fire DBB to even touch Osiris at all. If you use anything else, then you will not deal enough damage to kill Osiris within the 50 turn limit. I don't think I've seen a single person attempt to kill Osiris without DBB and succeed.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure if it's possible. I mean, I'm sure it's possible. I'm sure someone will just try and like IUBB it with like. Well, no, you can't because Ophi only has 70%. So no, you can't actually IUBB Osiris.
Hmm.
It's just downright impossible. So you'd have to somehow nuke him down in 50 turns, which isn't happening. And then he heals himself up to like 5%, and then kills all the 2 units in your squad when you get him down to 0% the first time. And then you have to last against incredibly weak attacks. He stops doing his phases at that point. But that's not the issue. The issue that people are having is that because this requires a DBB, people who don't have it cannot beat Osiris.
Yeah.
And although this isn't strictly required for them to do, it's just it's an aggravation to have that thrown in their face. Now, granted, the argument could be made that free DBBs exist, Ultor and Aurelia DBB exists, and does offer you the Nova synergy, though it's not anywhere near as good as Inoko DBB is for this. Inoko DBB is seriously king.
Yeah.
I'm honestly struggling to think of what to say. Oh, yes. What I said about the primary reason that defense doesn't matter for this is the following. The only way to damage Osiris reliably at this moment is to use DBB. Your other damage is pretty much all going to be chip damage, and chip damage doesn't amount to much when you have only 50 turns to output it. What this means is that if you want to kill Osiris, the only thing that matters is that you continuously DBB, which means that every single clear that I've ever seen of Osiris has centered mainly around getting off as many DBBs as humanly possible, as fast as humanly possible, while getting all of your damage mods set up so that the DBBs, if they crit, pretty much cleave Osiris in half. I watched Lena's gameplay video on this, and it is essentially that with, like, what Lena did is they used Ophi and 70% extra action buff combined with 100% recast to try and meme as many synergy crystals as possible and DBB Inoko repeatedly because there was no other way to damage it. That's literally all that matters. And that's why my team for this has essentially become Ondaria as a recaster and a bunch of 0 BC units that have 50% overdrive fill on their UBB. That's literally all it takes. If you can generate 6 to 7 DBB crystals every 2 turns, and you continuously DBB one unit that has like crit rate buffs on it, then you can reliably clear Osiris. Defense almost doesn't even matter because Ondaria UBB will keep you safe regardless, because although he does have a move that wipes evasion, I have never seen him use either of them.
Huh.
It is weird.
It's odd. I wonder why there would even be a moveset or a move in the game that is entirely unused.
I mean, Keelazar had like Keelazar Raid way back when had like this dummy text in it that was like, "Do you like your new husbando?" as an attack that was unused.
What the hell?
Though that might have just been someone trolling. I don't know, and I don't have the data mine in front of me to check.
Nice.
If anyone in the chat would like to confirm if that is indeed a thing, be my guest. I'd have to check the wiki, and I'm not.
Well, I mean...
But yeah, that's Osiris in a nutshell at the moment. And while I appreciate Gumi's effort to make DBB more natural in content, this is definitely giving us more content that requires DBB, and even the level 3s of the Devotion, Celerity, and especially the Valor path all require, well, not require, Valor requires, but the other two don't, DBB. I feel like making it so that DBB is the only way to do anything will ultimately result in exactly what Osiris is experiencing right now, where when nothing else matters except DVB damage, then it essentially becomes a race to see how fast people can get DVB, and squad composition doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
You can just load your team down with a bunch of 50% overdrive fill UVBs, and if you can get recast off with it, then you're just set. You just win.
Jesus.
That's the state of this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what else matters at that point? What do you do?
Yeah. Well, it's very difficult to create content that is balanced toward or away from DBB and other things because we're dealing with a game here where the power creep has become so extreme that there's actually only two extremes to something. You absolutely bullet the fuck over, or you take a longer time to absolutely bullet the fuck over, right?
Right.
And so, by balancing things toward DBB, they took the later option, which was, well, let's just make it take longer to absolutely destroy it.
Right.
Which is an issue in and of itself, but I don't know how easily that could be addressed, simply because it's an integral part of the game now that everything is broken.
I mean, I think they slightly addressed your concern. They would say that it doesn't take forever to break it now, because if you take longer than 50 turns, you just die.
Yeah, true. It's,
I'd also like to say that I'm not inherently against long boss fights, though maybe that's the Etrian Odyssey fan in me talking, but I really enjoyed the 130 plus turns I spent fighting Kranis on his original release.
Mm-hmm.
That was fun. I have a very twisted definition of fun. Kranis fulfilled it perfectly.
Mm-hmm. Always will be my favorite boss fight.
Osiris did at first, until I learned that was the entire thing with the fight.
Mm-hmm.
Once I learned that DBB basically is the only thing that damages any degree of speed or efficiency, and the only thing that mattered to the fight was getting off as many DBBs as possible.
Mm-hmm.
You could not, and Nova DBB just prevents him from doing any locks, which just breaks the fight in some areas.
Yeah.
Then you just win. But Osiris doesn't have a counter to you sitting there with Nova synergy up,
mm-hmm.
and just continuously DBB or UBB and DBB spamming. He doesn't have a counter to that unless you hit turn 50, which you shouldn't be doing if you have, like, if you're DBB spamming Inoko. Like, I have a very weird setup that essentially allows me to launch Inoko's DBB every 2 turns, and it just decimates the poor man. I think the shortest I've ever dealt with Osiris was in like turn 20, and I know that Lena can do it in turn 11 with his Ophi, which I attempted to get, but I don't have, so I can forever be behind the meta in that regard.
Yeah. Now, the Osiris fight, as well as, technically Valor 3, does bring up an interesting concept of DBB's piercing passive mitigation. And obviously that's not true everywhere.
They ignore everything.
Yeah.
They ignore stealth.
Mm-hmm.
They ignore, I think, evasion.
Uh-huh.
At least I don't see why evasion would affect it. They ignore damage immunity, which I actually tested against the Ezra trial fight.
Mm-hmm.
Which means that Ezra trial can now is also just a race to a DBB. It almost doesn't even matter what you do with the fight anymore.
Yep.
Just get her down to like, well, I don't know what percent, and then just like DBB.
Yeah.
Probably instantly die, or if she doesn't, then she doesn't really have a way to punish you. And if the DBB you used was like Honoka and Tate DBB, then it's immune to buff wipes. What sides we're gonna do then?
Yeah, it's
one do?
It's interesting because now that we're introducing these extremely overpowered synergies and the fact that, DBB works the way that it does, that old content is just... Old content didn't stand up to things previously, and now old content just is... Not only does it not stand up to things, but it just doesn't stand up to things even more now. And
I'm trying to think of a situation where if you... Like, could we kill Callan ignoring his thresholds now?
Maybe.
Like, think about it. If we were to DBB Honoka and Tate to
Mhm.
be immune to buff wipes, which would also give us 100% mitigation against pretty much everything.
Mhm.
We had one unit taunt, and then we just had everything else attack normally. Then wouldn't at least one unit survive and be unable to die to Empty Seal, and also be unable to be hit with the buff wipe that comes with Callan's Empty Seal, and thus outlast Callan's Threshold and win?
Good God. We have to test that.
I don't want to waste golems on Honoka and Tate.
Fair.
Give us better, like, Earth Thunder DBB before I go and do that.
That would
Give
be
us
fun.
Undaria and Zetas DBB.
My Hero Academia Season 4 could mean a rerun of the collab, and then we can get a Deku Bakugo DBV.
That would be Fire Thunder, which
Mhm.
we don't have yet, I believe.
Be interesting.
But yeah, one last thing. Why do people care about Osiris at all? Besides the sphere and glitter sand, which totally doesn't exist.
Mhm.
Osiris gives 35 Dichroma tokens per clear.
Mhm.
Or exalted tokens, whatever you want to call them. They're Dichroma tokens.
Yeah.
And this has led to people pretty much abandoning Dichroma en masse because no one wants to deal with Dichroma. Pretty much, like, I've looked in the Raiders channel of Brave Network, and, like, people are asking for Dichroma help and whatnot, and there's very rarely any people on there because everyone just wants to farm Osiris because, unlike Fury, who attacks at complete random and can sometimes just murder you, the most perfect setup imaginable, I can actually tell what Osiris is going to do. Osiris follows a set pattern. It is something that I can counter, and I know I might not be speaking for all players when I say this, but Osiris is actually more fun for me to fight than Fury.
Yeah.
And because of that, if I was going, and nothing in the Exalted Bazaar costs enough for me to go out of my way to have to farm a bunch of them at once, which would feasibly be what Dichroma is for now.
Yeah.
So as long as I just passively do Osiris while trying to get the drop that doesn't exist, I'll have all the Exalted tokens that I ever need.
Very true.
What else is there to do at that point? Why even do Dichroma?
Yeah.
Unless you're just doing it for, like, the 5 gems for first clear, there's really... I know that's the first thing that we covered on this channel, and now we're saying that Dichroma has effectively been phased out.
Yeah.
It's a little bit surreal.
It is actually a little bit surreal, and it's kind of sad. I don't know. As frustrating as Dichroma is, it was a good piece of content that was meant for the end-to-end game, and it really put a lot of stress on a lot of people who previously, or not negatively, put a lot of stress on a lot of teams and ways that we played the game that didn't previously exist because it was the most difficult content in the game, and now it is essentially irrelevant.
Yeah.
Which,
I'm looking in the stream chat at the moment. If DBB is going to become an integral part of the meta, which I believe it will, I think that Osiris, while he was a good test run for this, I feel like combining him with Krampus mechanics and then making him fight the way that he was is just... No, that doesn't work. You can't build a boss out of the cobbles of other bosses, and when they already didn't work well, and then expect this one to work well. And granted, Osiris balances a lot of gimmicks, but most of those gimmicks come down to, are you immune to this? Or have you set up locks against this? And Nova just breaks that wide open.
Yeah.
Once you have Nova up, he can't lock you.
And Nova at higher levels is going to be even more ridiculous for Osiris. It's something that a lot of people gloss over when we think about Osiris and how difficult it is, or how easy it is, however you see it. DBB is only getting stronger from here. And so...
It doesn't even matter, because if you're spamming DBB, then within, like, even with level 1 Nova,
Mm-hmm.
even with level 1 Nova,
Mm-hmm.
you should be getting a full team of units to be completely immune to locks
Yeah.
within, I don't know, 2 to 3.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you don't have Inoco, Nova synergy is with Tor and Aurelia. And while I wouldn't recommend doing that,
Yeah.
because only DBB damage actually matters against this boss, you can absolutely use Ultor and Aurelia for this, and
Mm-hmm.
it will deal still very high damage.
Yeah.
Will they still be higher than trying to UBB nuke it?
True.
That's not going to work.
It will be.
That didn't work.
It will be interesting to watch it evolve as DBB becomes stronger, as more units are added into the game, and inevitably as DBB changes based on Gumi's whim.
Yeah.
It is an interesting concept, though while I am, disappointed to hear some of the things that you said today about Osiris, because like I said, I haven't done it myself. I am also excited that we are moving in a direction that we were hoping for. And while this may not be the goal of what we wanted, is a step in the right direction towards balancing content for DBB.
Yeah. And of course, this also brings up the interesting question, because Nova and Eruption are the two strongest DBB synergies right now.
Mm-hmm.
Is there ever going to be a scenario where we can actually use those two DBB synergies together?
Oh, God.
Imagine that. Imagine being immune to pipes and then immune to locks. At that point, the only thing that can kill you is instant death, which in a majority of situations in the game is only triggered when you either do something incredibly stupid or you hit, I guess, whatever the time limit for the fight is. Like
Mm-hmm.
with Augmented Tridon, like with the Necromancer, like with Osiris, like with Krampus.
Mm-hmm.
Those bosses have like time limits to the fight. But other than that, you would essentially be unkillable if you had the two DBB synergies up, in the sense that nothing could ever be removed, safely set up UBBs and whatever, and unless the boss had some way to specifically punish you for that,
Mm-hmm.
then you just couldn't die.
Yeah.
I shudder to think, like way back when Maxwell Strategy Zone was a thing,
Mm-hmm.
and it had like this heavy BB punish where it would like decrease your HP to 1 and fully drain your BB gauge and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
I shudder to think that nowadays you could just like, and then it would like buff wipe you.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can just throw Honoka and Tate DBB at it and just no.
Kind of insane,
and just
isn't it?
no.
Wow.
And just no. You just nothing happened.
And thinking back on how much trouble I had with Maxwell, and how much trouble I had with that, and, like, even Lucius I had a lot of trouble with. Thinking back, those things are a goddamn joke now.
I mean,
even more so than previous. Even more so.
Rifts, but now
Yeah.
even more so.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty insane. So
Yeah, Honoka and like Eruption is, I think, Eruption Nova. Those are the two synergies.
Yes,
Watch
absolutely.
out for any units that get that synergy.
Mm-hmm.
They are going to be the ones that matter.
Yep.
They are going to be the ones that I'm going to be pulling holy for.
Exactly. So, did we have anything else that you wanted to cover in regards to the Uprising? As we, we're getting to the point where I guess we've covered everything, but I assume, if you have a couple more things to say, then we could address them.
The drop rate for Glitter Sand is nearly non-existent, and the fight cost energy, which means that at level 999, you can do it 4 times before you run out of energy and have to wait 2.5 hours for that to recharge, because 999s get double energy restore. If you're not 999, then it takes you 5 hours to restore 100 energy.
Yeah.
I've heard some people complain about Grief, which is like the material dropped from Valor 3, Celerity 3, and Devotion 3.
Mm-hmm.
Devotion 3 is definitely the easiest of those if you farm it. I got Griefs relatively quickly, actually. I got them like as many as I needed within like 15 runs.
Uh-huh.
And it wasn't too bad. It isn't anywhere near as bad as it's been with the sand grind, where I haven't even made the tier 3 con sphere.
Yeah.
Because I have not been able to get one glitter sand drop.
It's painful.
Gappy, I wish I was in your situation where I got 4 glitter sand before I got 1 grief, because farming for grief at least takes like 25 energy.
Mm-hmm.
And some people are saying Devotion 3 is autoable. Yeah, I did Devotion 3, and I just decided to DBB it to make it go quicker. I mean, at that point, why not?
My God. All right.
Yeah, that's this Vortex. I think that it was a step in the right direction that got met with some major pushback and had some questionable decisions made around it.
Yeah.
I think is the point we're trying to get across.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what continues from here, because I do like the idea that this is, which is a DBB, heavy Vortex dungeon, and I like the fact that it's a Vortex dungeon and that it's permanent. A lot of things aren't locked behind, well, you better hope there's a Rift Guild event running at the time, because otherwise, you're locked out of XYZ content, and instead, now we have a permanent Vortex dungeon that can be farmed at any time, either when you reach that, and also not having to worry about, what days is it here and what days is it gone, things like that.
Right.
It's a nice switch up.
I see some people commenting that DBB should not be extremely mandatory. On some level, I agree. On another level, I think that as long as Gumi is providing pre-DBBs for the elements, so that players, even if they're just using like Ultor and Aurelia, like the problem with Osiris is that DBB is the only thing that matters against him. Nothing else matters. You can build your entire team out of cobbled together elements. You can forego Paradigm entirely. You can just spam DBBs and be fine. I think that as long as team structure actually matters against the boss, and DBBing isn't the only way to win, it's just a supplement to you winning.
Yeah.
And I don't know of a way, especially with the way the current synergies are panning out, where the synergy is either absolutely useless or absolutely borked. I don't know of a way that can really change.
It's a good question.
Something like Radiance DBB or Radiance synergy is never going to.
Yeah.
Period. I can't think of a situation where I would Radiance over Nova.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. Well, I think that just about covers everything.
Yep. And I don't know,
Sand. I get the feeling that I'm gonna fucking hate Sand too. Anyway, thank you so much for tuning in, guys. I'm sorry there was such a gap between the videos, but we are back. Like I said at the beginning, regular schedule, going to be trying to upload multiple times a week. Everything is back and everyone is here. Thank you so much for tuning in, and make sure to check out the interesting links in the description. Faf, any closing words?
I don't like Sand.
I do not like Sand. All right, thanks, guys, and see you next time.